Let's talk about two of the most important retirement decisions you'll make as a pension holder. One is, do you take the survivorship option if you're a couple? And the second is, are you going to do lump sum versus your annual pension payment? These are important decisions because you make that decision once and you're locked in. And I'm going to use the case study that I've been walking through in this series to show you how this couple analyzed this decision. If you are just joining the series, my name is John Lee. I'm a CPA and tax professor, and I love maximizing after-tax cash flows, but more so I love maximizing after-tax happiness, which doesn't necessarily match up with maximizing after-tax cash flows. And I really love the psychological aspects of the decisions retirees need to make. And I always try to bring in a psychological perspective in each of these decisions. If you have not downloaded the free version of the My Financial Independence Plan, please do so using the link in the description below. The other thing I want you to do is go watch episode 1 and fill out your baseline plan. What I'm going to show you today, you can build yourself, and you'll have your own baseline plan where you can run some of these projections. You won't have all of the functionality that I'm going to show you. A lot of that will be in the paid version, but you can do quite a bit with the free version that I'm giving you. To start off, let's look at this couple's financial independence plan. Right now, if we look at this projections tab, and this is kind of in the paid version, but we've done 15 different projections analyzing different strategies, and we've created an extra $500,000 in net worth, $535,000, using these tax strategies that hopefully will bring them more happiness as well. Now let's jump into this pension decision. What I'd like to do is, in my last video I calculated the worth of their pension, how much value it had. I'm going to kind of get rid of those 13, 14, and 15. We're not going to keep those projections, so I'm going to clear those. You want to take note how much the value of the pension was, but I've locked in 20 different I allow you to do 20 different projections in this paid version, and I mean that's a lot, but you can do so many different things. The first thing I want to lock in is, you can see in their final net worth, $8,888,644, and yours may be higher, yours may be lower. That's not the important thing. The important thing is that you can maximize this decision for yourself, and this will apply to everyone who has a pension. In your profile tab, let's scroll down to the pension section. So we have the pension for the husband and the spouse, and I want to change one thing before we do the baseline, because they'd already made the decision to do a lump sum for the spouse, and I had that built into our previous projections. We're just going to take it out for now, just to show you the effect of it. So a partial lump sum, I should say. So we're going to put that at 0 for now, and then if you're taking the lump sum, roll over to an IRA, we're just going to do 100%. And that's going to decrease that final net worth slightly, taking out that lump sum amount, but everything else looks good. We're starting with 0% survivor. So that's our baseline. So on the projections tab, just so we can do the comparison, we'll do baseline strategy, which is 0% survivor, no lump sum for both spouses. Because in this situation, both spouses have a pension, so we're going to have to do this analysis for both. So we're going to set projection 13, and that'll lock in our baseline so we can do comparisons. If you don't have the paid version, you can still, you won't be able to lock in each of these projections, but you can still do the projections on the profile tab and see the differences. Let's first, what we're going to do is, we're going to do a bet, so pension strategy, and we're going to do husband. So we're going to start with the husband's pension strategy because he's already retired. Well, he was the first to retire in this case. So what we're going to do is do best case scenario, 0%, 25%, and 50% survivor. So we're going to look at the effect of the electing the survivor in the best case scenario, and then we're going to, in 15, we're going to do pension strategy husband, worst case scenario. Because when you're making the decision, and the reason we're starting with the survivor benefit is he does not have a lump sum option. So we're starting, he's first retire, we're just going to look at the survivor benefit for the husband. Does he want that survivor benefit for the spouse? And if we go to the future planning tab, Let's look at what the pension looks like right now just in that baseline. In our income section, we can see our fixed income, and the pension starts here at 63, and there's the annual pension amount. And again, from the last video, you can see this husband's pension alone is going to be $1,026,000 after adding up all of those annual payments. What we're going to look at is if the husband passed away early, that's why we're looking at the survivorship. This goes to 0 unless there's a survivorship percentage that the wife could have. And the other thing you want to consider, we don't want to make this decision in isolation, right? Sometimes you'll see a video and it says, here's a calculator for your pension decision. The cool thing about building it out in your MyFi plan is you've already built out your budgeted expenses. You're building out everything, and then you can come over here and say, okay, my net cash flows before account withdrawals, here's where I'm at, you know, and we're just going to see how those change throughout each of these decisions. So on the profile, we've locked in 0%. Now let's move, and I have some notes that I left in here for their options. Here's the husband's options. So if he does a 25% survivor, well, the pension amount's going to drop to $32,478. So the survivorship's options are 0, 25, and 50, and you can see how the annual pension amount's going to decrease based on if there's a survivor. Let's start with 25%. We're going to go, best case scenario is they both live a long life. What would happen if they elect 25% survivor benefit? You can see it went up, but we need to decrease our annual amount to $32,478. So final net worth is going to decrease. Let's go see in our projections what was the total decrease. We'll lock it in as projection 14. So we have you lose $62,000 in final net worth. To have that insurance, should the husband pass away, the wife's still going to get 25% of the pension. What does that look like in the future planning? In those last 3 years after the husband had passed, she gets 25% of his pension amount. And we'll look at in the worst case scenario as well if he had passed earlier. But let's lock in. So 8,671, 759. Well, yeah, we're going to take note of each of these. So 8,733, 994. So here we'll have, so 0%, 8,733, 944. That is the final net worth. And you can see 25%, we're going to subtract 60 for 62K. So it's going to cost 62K doing the 25% from that total. Now let's do the 50%. So profile, let's change this to 50% and do 30,769. It's going to cost a little more, but you can see if we go to that future planning, the wife's still going to get 50% of the husband's benefit if he passes away. So we can go back to our projections. Let's override projection 14 just to see that difference again. And now, so final net worth, assuming they both live the long life, best case scenario, it only costs them $110,000 to guarantee that 50% benefit still. So we can go and say, of the husband in best case scenario, minus 62K. For 50% survivor, it's going to be minus 110K. And they're just going to, they're not done weighing it yet because you're like, oh, I'm worse off by 110K. Well, we need to look at the worst case scenario too to see, gosh, the real benefit of having that survivor percentage. So first thing we're going to do is in our profile, we're going to go back and set it to our baseline again of 0% survivor and 34,578, 34,578. So again, 8,733, 984. So and in our worst case scenario, 0, 25, and 50. So now what we're going to do for worst case scenario, we're going to say, what if the husband dies next year, right? We never wish that, but we want to do this comparison. You can see there was a significant drop in final net worth, obviously, because had the husband passed away, that pension isn't going to be paid out for the rest of his life, and we have 0% survivor, so the wife isn't getting any of that pension. let's lock that in just to see the difference in that projection 14. We're going to say, okay, at our final net worth, yeah, it's the cost is from the original to this is going to be 1.84 million in worst case scenario. So let's just put that there. For worst case scenario, 0%, you're going to be minus 1.84 million if there's no survivorship percentage. Let's do the 25% now. Again, we're in worst case scenario. So if there's a 25%, we should see a jump, although we have to decrease the annual amount, but in the worst case scenario, that annual amount isn't going to have a large effect because it wasn't used for very long. The pension that first year, if they pass away in that first year, you can see they still get 25, the wife is still going to get 25% of the husband's benefit for life. And now the cost, let's go see that difference. If we lock in 14 again, override that one, we'll see now it's only, instead of 1.84 million, the cost is only 1.51 million. So, you know, these pensions are valuable, so losing one is huge for the couple, right? But you can see they're kind of, it's insurance, 1.5. If you do that 25% now, even though you're going to be worse off, you're not quite as worse off because you're minus 1.51 million for the 25%. 50%, let's run that one really quick. And again, this is the worst case scenario. So if we do 50% and we change that to 30,769, we're increasing that final net worth even more as you're looking at, so 1.22 million in the worst case scenario. So it's good. You need to compare both, right? You need to minus 1.22 million. You know, you can take, if you like 0%, how much was our increase in the first scenario? You know, we're 110,000 better off by doing 0% in the best case scenario, right? In the worst case scenario, how much more? It's a $620,000 difference in the worst case scenario. So there's going to be a balance. And this couple actually chose the 25%, which worst case scenario, they're better off by 330,000. In best case scenario, they only lose 62,000. That's a trade-off they were willing to make. So that's the husband's best and worst. Let's lock in. If we go back to profile, let's lock in what they actually chose, which is going to be, we're going to do a 25% with 32,478. 32,478. Lock that in, and we're going to leave it. We're going to wish the best and lock in the best case scenario. Put the life, living a full life, 8.671 is going to where they're going to end up in that case. That's a cool way you can look at these different scenarios and see the difference in your survivorship options. What effect will it have? Best case scenario, it's going to cost me this much, but if it saves me that much in the worst case scenario, that peace of mind might be worth it, right? Let's also, so for the wife, we have a lot more complication here because we have a lump sum option and the survivorship option. We're going to start with the lump sum. And this is different than some pensions will have a large lump sum and then no annuity after that. This one's different where it's a partial lump sum and then just a lower annuity. The principles are going to be the same, and it's kind of like insurance again. You know, if you choose the annuity option and in worst case scenario you pass away, you saw in that future planning those pension payments are gone and you don't have anything at that point, right? But if you pick a lump sum, then you have a sum of money that you're going to put in an IRA or other investment, and that is still there for heirs or your spouse, right? So that's something to consider. It's taking the lump sum is almost insurance, but the lump sum is also then you're going to have to go invest and get the return on investment. The psychological aspect of this is there's research that shows that people who have that monthly payment have an easier time spending their money in retirement. So these are all things to not just the math, but you got to consider the psychological aspects of that as well. And that's just something that I'm going to have built in in the next couple videos, probably 2 or 3 videos from now, I'm going to have a happiness score built in. So as you're making these decisions, the math gives you one answer, but happiness-wise, there may be another answer, and I'm building something to quantify that. That being said, let's look at the option. Let's go back to our baseline scenario. So now we're doing baseline strategy for wife. After we've built in the husbands, let's just lock in the baseline for wife. So we're going to just set projection 16. That's baseline, so we can see the effect on hers as well. And we'll do pension strategy, lump sum. And she has 3 options: none, 1 year, or 2 year. And we'll put in our figures here. So for the lump sum option, let's go over. And we're going to do best case scenario. For the lump sum, let's go back to the profile. And we're going to put in the lump sum information. We're going to have lump sum equals yes, lump sum amount 0, so 8,671,759. Let's also put that into, if we don't do the lump sum, we're going to end with 8,671,859. Hit enter. Then let's go back. If we do a lump sum, we'll say yes, lump sum amount. She has the option of taking 1 year of the full pension, 55,966, as a lump sum. Then the amount to roll over to an IRA. If I put 0, what that's going to do is in your future planning, you'll see the wife will have that full lump sum is going to be taxable income this year. So if you do the lump sum option, you need to recognize you need to either roll that into an IRA or the whole thing's going to be taxable, right? In this case, well, let's roll it over. As most people want to do is roll it over. So let's say 100% added to the IRA, then you distribute as you'd like. Pension annual amount, if she does 55,966, the annual amount is going to decrease to 51,768. So we'll override there. What was the effect? 8,674,544. Let's go to projections. Okay, I'm setting the baseline for the wife as projection 15. That's going to work there. And then for that first projection, we will do, again, lump sum amount 55,966, and then we're going to do the override as 51,768 for the new annual amount. What effect did that have on her overall net worth? She's better off by 2,000. Not a huge effect, and the assumption was she's taking that money and investing it. Not a huge effect in her case. If it's like a big lump sum and no pension, you're going to see a bigger effect there, and you'll want to analyze that. And again, one of the most important things in this is the rate of return you're getting. And in the profile we've built in retirement, the rate of return on their tax-deferred accounts is 5.7%. So at 5.7%, that's the rate of return on that 55,000. So the lump sum, you can see, is not as big an issue here. The benefit received, if I go up, was about 2.7K. Is the additional benefit for the wife. 1 year, we're going to do plus 2.7K. If you do the 1 year pension option, so pension option 1.7K better off. Now let's go do the 2 year pension, 111,932, and the lower amount 47,568. And again, all of that 111,000 would go into the IRA. You can see the difference. I didn't see a huge difference either on this one. So they're offsetting each other. That lower pension amount, they're pretty even at that 5.7% rate. 4.7K better off. So under these assumptions, you will probably see if you have like a bigger option between a large lump sum and no annuity, you're going to see bigger differences with that lump sum option. And in this case, so they're at least now planning on doing at least that 55,000, and it looks like they could even do more. One option they have is maybe they take that 111,000 and don't put it in their IRA to distribute later. Maybe they just take it this coming year, right, when they pull that lump sum to use for house projects or whatever it might be. We could run that really quick by showing on that profile tab, instead of having that go into 100% of the IRA, we don't invest it. And you can see we're gonna see a difference there, because the other one is assuming it's in that IRA and maybe not coming out for a while, where you can potentially use it if you take it out immediately. So let's go back to 100%. As of right now, they're planning on the 1-year option, so we'll leave it at that. Actually, because it hasn't even happened yet, we're just going to leave that projection 16, just showing those differences. Now we're gonna reset it and assume there was no lump sum, just so we can see the effect. The survivorship actually makes a lot bigger impact than the lump sum option for the wife, because she has a very valuable pension, as we saw in the last video. So lump sum, let's just go to 0 again and reset. Let's just reset to look at the survivorship, because lump sum is not going to make a huge difference, as we saw, unless they take it out and use it immediately. For the survivorship options, we're going to do 0, 50, and 100%. So in our projections, just so we have this locked in, pension strategy wife, and we are going to do, we're not done with the lump sum for the wife yet. So we did the best case scenario for the wife. Now we're going to do the worst case scenario. And that is, this is where we'll see a bigger difference and there's more effect with the pension versus lump sum option. In the worst case scenario, if we go back to future or our profile, best case scenario we were at 8.671 with 0. Now if we do worst case scenario, if the wife died early, we see a lot bigger effect, that 5.343. So in our projections, we'd see a decrease of 3.3 million. So you can see that the wife's pension is super valuable upon early death without a lump sum, 3.3 million in lost value. In the worst case scenario, no lump sum, minus 3.3. Let's do the same thing if we go to profile. Worst case scenario for if you do the 1-year lump sum, so we'll do the lump sum amount of 55,966 and then 51,768 for the annual. We're going to do 100% of the IRA. I mean, still the effect is still big no matter what, but you'll see the difference if we do 16. It was 3.3 million before, now it's 3.17 million. So having that bit of lump sum helps some. So minus 3.17 million. And finally, the 2-year lump sum, we do that one, 111,932, and then 47,568 is what it drops to. Look at the projections, projection 16, you can see about 3.03 million. So there is a benefit to having that lump sum upon 3.03, and it could result in 270,000 or so additional wealth. That's best and worst case scenario for the lump sum. You want to run both in order to properly analyze the whole situation. Finally, this one's a bit longer. This one's an important decision, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, right? We'll go back. We're going to leave projection 15, and I might just keep changing projection 16. We've kind of seen what is desired for the lump sum and the options, and they still have some time to make that decision, so we're just going to delete those for now to reset it so we can see the survivorship benefit as well. The survivorship options are 0, 50, and 100, so 0, and let's just do again, we need to do best case and worst case scenario for each of these, and that's why this video's a bit longer, right? So we're going to copy the husbands here, and as number 17 we are going to do wife. For the sake of time, I quickly just went through and did the 6 projections for the wife's survivor scenarios. So the best case scenario, 8.6 million. If you take that 50% survivor, she loses 144,000. They do in lifetime net worth, and 264,000 if they do the 100% survivor benefit. That's the best case scenario. So the best case scenario, if they do 100% survivor, it's going to cost them about 264K in total net worth. But the worst case scenario is really what paints the picture, because it's the survivor benefit. So if the wife had passed away in the next year, no survivor benefit, there's a $3.3 million cost to net worth. If there's a 50% survivor, then the cost is 2.56 million. So you can see even an $800,000 difference just having that 50% survivor. And if it's 100% survivor, we're looking at the cost is 1.89 million total, but compared to the 3.3, you're looking at 1.4 4 million or so. You can see the bigger decision is the bigger impact on their net worth is going to be from the wife's pension in this decision on doing the survivor or not. As you can see, there's quite a big difference there. One of the most important things you're going to do in this is your cash flow. You want to see, in this case, if it's 0%, we left it at 0% survivor. With the husband, what would his financial outlook look like with cash flow? Well, he has his Social Security, he has his pension, and you can see the wife's is no longer there, right? But what we're looking at is total cash inflows. They're lower that year, but overall, you know, they're 60s, 70s, 80s, and you need to compare that to what are his projected expenses based on the budgeting process we did in the first video and the charitable, etc. You can see he's in the green. One year he's in the negative, but he's in the green, 19, 28,000 the other years. So based on his expenses, he'll be just fine even if it was the 0% survivor. Your situation may be different, so you may need to look at also the account withdrawals. And this is in the paid version, but estimating, okay, how much am I taking from cash? How much from my taxable accounts? In RMDs, you'll see those are built in already, but being able to edit these is in that other version. But that's where you're looking cash flows after account withdrawals. Are you in the positive? And if you're okay, that should help you in your decision making. You know, even if we did the 0%, the husband's going to be okay, even though you see a big effect on the final net worth, cash flow wise, things will work out. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you're finding value in these videos, please like them, because that helps YouTube say, oh, people like this. And subscribe as well if you want to stay updated on these videos. And then please share them with others if you know of others that would find this useful. And yeah, see you in the next one.